All right, cool. All right, Mason, we'll get started here. So I do want to introduce, due to the title of the kind of video that I'm thinking through is from respectably, quote unquote, possibly failing agent to selling 40 policies in 30 days. Ultimately, the purpose of this video is to ultimately share with you how you did it, give you some insight, help some new agents that might be struggling. And just want to confirm it was 40 policies, and I got down to $41,453 in premium. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I think it was 42 policies. And then
42.
Just a few $1,000s over 40. So yeah, $40,000 and some change, I think.
Sweet. Cool. We'll correct that. 42 policies. Right on. I'd love to first ask to, before like diving in and learning system, this was your first full month and outside of training. What was your record before, or like the most you've ever sold prior to joining our organization?
My record before in a month, I mean, I don't know if it was over 10. Like it was such a marginal number. It wasn't really anything that was like standing out, because I've been trying to think about that. Like, what was my best month in the past? I remember I had weeks where I had done like 2,000 of annual premiums in a week, and that felt like a really good week in the past.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that was a really good week in the past.
Yeah, so you went from doing 2,000. What was your best week? You think like 12K or so?
No, like
here.
Oh, my best week here was like 12, 15K, something like that. So right around there, 10 to 12 in that range, but definitely over 10. And I think my best in the past was like 2,500, and that was like, whoa, like,
yeah,
whoa. Like I got a phone call, like, you're doing awesome.
Yeah.
And I just had no context to like what was really possible if you have the right things in place.
Yeah.
And it's just so crazy to think like 3 months ago to now, like how much my career has changed when it comes to life insurance sales. And I was about to like leave the industry completely. I thought it was over, and it was a blessing that I had been watching your videos the whole time. It's probably the only reason I sold any policies, to be honest. And I'm not just saying that, Peter. Like,
yeah,
God's honest truth, that YouTube channel is a very valuable asset to life insurance agents. But then I thought, hey, like I might as well give this guy's agency a try, because I've always liked his videos, and so maybe I like his agency. And yeah, it's just been like far exceeded my expectations, and there's just been so many pieces in place that have allowed me to succeed here that I didn't have in the past. And I think that's the biggest difference is taking a couple weeks to make sure I'm properly trained. I understand the purpose of the training. I understand the purpose of the script, how it works, why it works, and ultimately our goal and what we're trying to do. And just understanding the big picture of our day-to-day, our week-to-week, or month-to-month, and then understanding how to execute properly has just, in just a month, it's changed everything for me.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. When it comes to in those times where you were probably struggling, or like, what were the biggest things that were like, man, like were really daunting for you? You were about to quit. Like, why was that? And ultimately, what were some of the things that you were going through that maybe other people probably are going through right now when you were in that moment?
So to make a long story short, it was essentially, I was in a position where I had like only could sell to unions. It was like very much a bait and switch type of sale, and that always made me so uncomfortable. I wanted to speak with people who wanted life insurance from the beginning. Like that's why we knew that's why we were on the call, and I just never found success selling this kind of like bait and switch style. Like, here's a free thing, and then hey, let's take a look at some life insurance real quick. And so being able to talk to people every day that want life insurance, that are, qualified candidates, that aren't just, on the phone to be on the phone, but generally are trying to find a solution to a problem. Now we can start to present them with the solution rather than kind of like having to backdoor, hey, by the chance, like, do you need life insurance? Do you have life insurance? To like, oh, you have a problem. Like, you need to cover this burial. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's see what we can like. This makes things so much more convenient as an agent is the people I'm speaking to.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you think the quality of like the people, there's a true intention behind who you're speaking to. And I'm sure like, were you doing similar activity to, or were you kind of like, man, I just all of a sudden started to work hard and I all of a sudden started to put in the activity? Like, were you still working pretty hard and ultimately like the same output every single day inside of your previous model, or what did that look like? Or do you feel like you weren't going as hard?
Yeah, I certainly was still working very hard. I've always been, somebody who's a hard worker. So I would still, still same hours, still working until 8 p.m., still dialing all day. But it's a lot easier to want to work hard, to feel motivated when you have a team around you, a team of people that care about your success, when you have tools in place that will make you more successful. And even though I still felt like I was working really hard in the past and not getting success, I knew that I was working really hard here, but the result of that work was just like literally 10 times as much because of the things in place that made my work successful. It wasn't just working hard to work hard or making the dials to make the dials. It was making the dials because I know I'm going to talk to somebody who needs life insurance, and then I can help them solve that problem. And not so much about like in the past that I felt like if I just hit my dials today, like I can say I did a good job. Like if I did my 150, like if I didn't make any sales, at least I did my 150, right? And that, like it's the exact opposite. It's like, cool, like maybe I only made 30 calls today, but I got 3 sales. Like that's cool.
Yeah, that's a huge moment of, it's such a big shift. I think as you did kind of push through, and in the beginning you struggled a bit. I mean, it wasn't like you learned it overnight. You had to take 2-3 weeks of kind of putting it all together. What do you think was like one of the biggest changes that you made that really helped you start closing more policies at like a higher level? Anything specific there?
Yes, definitely. I think the outline and the structure of how you teach us to sell, which is based around our script, that really gave me a good foundation, because essentially everybody is different, but everybody has a very similar problem. So yeah, sure, you need to adapt things at times, but that script has been really been the biggest thing, I think.
What style of your sales process allowed for those results? So like, what did you realize, like, man, this makes, so let me rephrase that. Like, what would be something that you were doing previously that wasn't getting you results in your sales process that you're like, man, I would never do that ever again, knowing what I know now? Anything kind of come to mind?
Yeah, I think in the past I wasn't doing any mirroring, so I would just listen and then say something back to them. I wasn't doing any note taking. I was kind of just there with one human who just with another, like, let me try to help you. But now I feel like I have a tool belt. Like I know what to do, how to do it, when to do it. And it's hard to kind of explain why or when I got there or how I got there, but it was just repetitions every day, working really hard with Josh, working on my tonality, understanding some people don't want to have the, hey, it's great to see you. Like some people want a boring life insurance salesman. Some people really need somebody to help them walk them over the line because they're really scared to make this decision if they've been putting it off for 10 years. And having that emotional intelligence, I think, came with confidence. And that confidence came through really hard work and working with Josh, working with you, and understanding the script, understanding what tonality is, understanding what mirroring is, and understanding all these different techniques that you're not necessarily taught when you walk into any place or institution that makes sales. I honestly felt, Peter, like my first 2-3 weeks here, it kind of felt like I was being paid to learn how to become a salesman. because you guys give us a base salary here. And I remember every day I was just like, I'm learning so much. Like, I didn't know how to sell before. Now I know how to sell. Like, I know what a salesperson should be doing. And we talk about this from time to time in like our big chats at the end of the day. But like, when you come across a bad salesman at like at a gym, all of a sudden, like, now I'm starting to notice these things. Like, like, that is he really trying to sell me this way? Like, oh, that's interesting. Or yeah, I go to Starbucks and I think like how the person behind the cash register, like, they're always like, okay, you want a latte, and what else? And what else would you like? They're not saying, okay, is that it? And I just noticed these things throughout life now. And I think that is because I have been trained to sell, and then you see it everywhere in the world.
That is cool. Yeah, well, like everything's a sale. I think that's like you pick it up, which is so cool. And it's funny it's interesting to see how you learn that skill. When it comes to like learning, what was I gonna ask you? Like learning that sale
technique,
sales techniques or the training. I don't know. It just went through my head here. We'll kind of keep pushing through. So you've learned kind of how to develop the skills of sales, and you realize the mistakes that you made there. What other like shifts did you have to make to kind of be able to progress in your process? Anything else that you did differently after like kind of learning the new sales process?
Yeah, so after learning the new sales process, going from a new agent to a senior agent, I was really motivated that first month. I think for January, there was only 3 days out of the month that I took off. So I was working, and that's like with the holidays and everything. I was working really hard that month. But it was a lot of it has to do, Peter, with the people that you've curated here. Like, we have such an amazing group of people. In my team, I love my team that I'm on, and we were talking about this the other day. But this isn't a zero-sum game, meaning like there doesn't have to be a loser for there to be a winner. And we have a leaderboard, and at the end of the week and at the end of the month, somebody's always on top. But we can all win and all hit our goals together. And our team, Christian and Colby and Andy and everybody, we all push each other really hard, and we're all like in each other's corner. And I think that was also a big difference maker, was at the beginning of the year, becoming a senior agent, being surrounded by people that were very, very same mentality, very motivated. Everybody has goals, and everybody has a similar story in the past of kind of why they ended up here. And then you see all these people in the past who weren't necessarily great at sales, who are just achieving incredible things here. And it's like, there are so many stories, so many people who just right away, like, everything's different or whatever. Yeah.
That's huge. What I realized what I wanted to ask you, do you feel like salespeople are born, like naturally born, or they have to be made? Do you think anybody could learn skills like to actually sell, or to take a specific person to like hit these results?
Yeah, I think anybody can do this. As long as you're willing to put in the time and you're coachable and you apply what you learn, within 1 month, you can transform as a salesperson to go from selling maybe 10 policies in a month to, easily getting past 40 or comfortably getting over 40.
Yeah. Just the reps and also the hard work. What was one of the hardest objections that you faced early on that were like in your sales process was really tough for you to overcome?
It was honestly the hardest thing for me to overcome was asking uncomfortable questions.
Okay.
So that was harder for me to overcome personally than objections handling. Asking them, God forbid, who's going to be paying for your funeral if they don't have coverage, and is that person in a position, and what would the family have to do, and like kind of really getting to understand where they are in their situation in life so we can present a solution. That was very uncomfortable for me in the beginning, but that really is maybe the key. The most important part is truly understanding why they need the life insurance, so we can bring them that solution to the problem.
Yeah, I was gonna ask why is that so important, but you got to get that pain. Something that just came to my mind is if people are struggling like with clients, like let's say I come to you, Mason, like man, watched your video. I get a lot. I'm making some sales, but people are canceling their policies after they sign up with me. What advice would you give them in their sales process so they can actually sell good business that allows them to actually like get clients that will stay? What would you say?
Sure. I think the biggest thing for me in this last month has been making sure that I'm selling policies to my clients that they can afford every month. So when we are trying to find a solution, generally members want as much as they can fit in their budget, but that's not always what's best for them. Some people just need coverage that we know is they can afford every month, whether if it's a good or bad month. And I think that making sure your client knows that you have their best intention in heart, and you can communicate to them effectively that you want to make sure they have a policy that they can keep alive forever, that will always be active. Because if we write them something they can't afford and it lapses, it's not doing anybody any good.
Sure.
I think for me right now, that's very big. And then also at the end of the call, after the sale, after the application, really giving them peace of mind, really letting them know who you are, who we are, following up with them, making sure they have all their application information, making sure that it gets delivered to them, really building that relationship and letting them know that you're their agent for life. And that is what's going to make sure that first premium gets paid and that those premiums are paid every month, and you keep that client for life.
Absolutely. Such a good point. Did you think did you have to let people go because they don't fit? Like, I mean, could you have 60 sales this month if you just literally sold anything to anyone? Like, did you feel like there's a process where you had to let people go because they didn't feel like they could fit in the budget, or they were just buying something they couldn't afford? Like, how did you kind of handle that?
So I'm just looking at my tracking sheet for the month. I was in 62 total applications this month. I ended up closing 42, but you'll see there's a big change in my numbers where it goes from number of apps to numbers of sales. And about halfway through the month, from the 1st to about the 15th, there's a bit of a discrepancy where you'll see more apps than sales. And then that second half of the month, it's almost every app I go into is a sale. And I think that is because about halfway through the month, I started to make sure we didn't go into an application unless we were very confident they could afford it. And I think that first half of the month where a lot of people got scared in the application and might have hung up or got cold feet, it was because they were afraid they couldn't afford it. And they ended up just, backing out last second because they're about to make a big decision. And when I realized this, that's when I said to myself, all right, let's just make sure we always set up policies that they can afford. And that is what I think has led to being able to comfortably go to app and close almost every time, is making sure that they can afford it.
That's so good. Yeah, instead of just like pushing people through, like when you have so much volume, it's like you're not as scarce. But what would be some things that you would do to ensure? Because a lot of people probably are getting chargebacks. Did you get a lot of chargebacks at your previous company? And if so, what do you know now that would have prevented getting those chargebacks?
Yeah, I was pretty decent when it came to placement. I've always been wanting to do the best by the people I work with. But I think that, genuinely asking them when they make a choice and they say they want 25,000 instead of 20,000, and asking them, but you can kind of maybe hear a little bit in their voice, ask them, can you really afford this every month, comfortably and affordably, regardless of if it's good or bad? If the washing machine breaks down next month, can you still pay for your life? Like genuinely asking them that. And at that point, you should have enough trust with them that you can ask those kind of questions, because then you're really getting to a point where you're making a serious decision and you're getting them to understand that this is intended to be a bill for the rest of your life to take care of all of your final expenses. So it is permanent and it is serious, and it needs to be affordable, because if it's not and it lapses, no, it's not helping anybody. It's not doing anybody any.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just having that relationship is important. I think a lot of people do get scared of asking those questions because they're like, oh man, I got to make this sale, but it's so important. When it comes to like the strategy and like the habits to get to your goals, like give someone context. How many calls were you typically shooting for per day? And were you went from a previous appointment model, like getting appointments, showing up on Zoom, doing appointments, to now doing one call closes. Would you ever go back to appointments, or would you always stick with the one call close? And if so, why?
Only reason I would ever do an appointment is if my client specifically asked, because I'm going to serve them. I'm not going to be the person to tell somebody no. If they're like, hey, we want to do, like, my husband's just super uncomfortable. Like, can you just like FaceTime us so we can see who you are? Sure. But from other than that, no. Like, we're doing one call closes because there's just so many people to talk to a day that it's just so different from this, or the old model, that you know, you really want to make sure that you can do it in one call, because you know, setting up appointments, it's just going to be diminishing gains. But in the first month, my first month, which was December, started on the 2nd of December, I did just shy of 9,000 dials for that month. Wow. And in January, I started as a new agent, senior agent, January 6th. And that's when the leads went from like our older leads to our new leads. And so a lot more contacts and a lot more pickups, but I still had just over 7,000 dials for January. So a lot of activity, average.
Yeah. How much is that a day? 7,000 divided by, let's say 20, 28, about 250 to 300 dials per day minimum. So yep. Just the volume there. So definitely stay away from the appointments. If you have to, you would do them, but just a long call close. Cool. Other than that, like, advice would be helpful for, like, you know, any struggling agents who, like, man, are trying to get started. They're struggling. They're not getting the results. Like, they feel lost, because I'm sure you might have probably felt like that. What would you kind of share with them if someone is feeling lost right now in their journey?
I think I would say to kind of take a step back and to look at the bigger picture. You know, everybody's situation can be a little different, but are you comfortable with what you're doing? Do you enjoy what you're doing? Do you think it can be better? And, you know, then start to see how you can implement changes yourself, because, you know, I'm very blessed to be here. But if you're not, and you want some structure, you know, starting to implement the tracking sheet, just like, you know, how many dials do you have a day? How many contacts do you have a day? How many presentations? How many sales? How many applications? Like, that's a great place to start to track your metrics. I think getting some kind of a dialing system, like, that's going to make you much more efficient throughout the day. You know, if you don't have a script, trying to develop a script, something that works for you. And then the biggest thing, I think, is learning what mirroring is, you know, learning tonality, how to adjust your tonality, learning how to implement those things. That's really what's going to make more sales for you every week, is learning like the sales techniques. And then if you are feeling lost, I would say start to implement more structure. And if you're feeling like you're not making as many sales, start working on those sales techniques and really crank up that activity. And Absolutely. That's going to get you success.
It's really good. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I know that you came from like a previous company, and then even when you applied to work with us, you're probably like skeptical, like a little bit, like, man, I don't know if it's going to work. Like, everyone overpromised. My last company didn't give me good results. I don't know what's going to happen. Like, if you're a new agent and you are like looking to get started and work with a company, like, what do you think are some questions that you think you should ask before you actually join like the company that you are working with, that would have like helped you make a better decision?
Yeah, I don't know if you remember this in our first initial interview, but I remember being impressed by Legacy Family Life, because the reviews from agents, that can kind of tell you like how a company is on the inside. And I was saying like positive things by people that were longer at the company. It's like that must be a really good indicator that they're doing something right. And as you know, as I was going through the hiring process, there's just so many like checks and balances and along the way, kind of like, that really makes sure you're committed and you're a good fit. And that gave me confidence in the company that it was the right decision for me. And also, having some kind of an idea on who you were, because I had been listening to your YouTube videos for 6 months. And, honestly, I had, before even knowing you, had trust built up with you because you had put out so much quality content that I had consumed online, that I had already felt a degree of certainty in my mind that I was like, I'm going to make sure I get hired here. They're going to love me because I already love them. I just need to, talk to them first for a little bit, and things are going to work out. And I had this idea in my head at the end of November. I was like, this is my last shot at life insurance. I'm doing something else. And everything's worked out how I wanted it to. Is the hiring process, you guys made it quick for me, but you made sure it was still thorough. I was able to get through the new agent process in about 3 weeks. I think the quickest you can do is like 2 weeks, but right there, right on pace with my goal. And then right out of the gates, my first month, I'm able to set a personal record, like blow it out of the water. And I think it's just, that's the testament to this company and the way it's built with intention. You can certainly tell that you and Micah had put very, very, very intentional thought into every single thing about this company. When it comes to our dialing system, when it comes to how we manage our clients, when it comes to how we do our leads, and everybody that works here, everybody is awesome. Like, and I don't say that to just say that. Like, everybody's here for a reason. Very curated. It's not just like, there's this idea of a mass versus class. And mass is as many agents as you can get, as many just random people as you can call, just load the top of your funnel with as much as you can. And then there's the class way, which is like it's more of like a machine gun versus sniper. Like, let's just get the right people, everything right, and not do so much mass, and just really have a refined funnel. And that's what this feels like to me. Is just it really knows what it wants to be. It was designed by former agents who knew what was wrong with this industry and wanted to change it. And everything about what you guys are doing, or what we're doing here at Legacy Family Life, has been what I wanted in an agency and what I hoped for. And it's just so cool that is actually what it says it is.
That means a lot. Yeah. Well, thanks for giving us a little promo there. But yeah, I mean, just the culture, I think that's true. A lot of mass versus, that's a great analogy. Just kind of fill butts in the seats or find quality people that can really build a sustainable culture is our goal. If someone like came to you like right now, Mason, you're like, man, I watched your video. I want to sell 40 policies in 30 days. How do I do it? What would you say? And like, they don't work with us. What would you tell them?
I would say learn mirroring, learn tonality, learn how to solve problems, and really put a lot of activity and work in. That's what I did, and it worked for me. The only way I would be able to know how to tell somebody to do it.
Just put the grind in. Absolutely cool. Well, you had to work hard to get it. Thanks for sharing kind of like your journey, and in regards to like any final things that you want to share with anybody, or anything that's on your heart.
And what you want to share is the biggest thing. I think, you can accidentally learn a lot of things as an agent, and if your upline and is kind of I would say just make sure that your upline is somebody that you feel, confident in, somebody that you would trust to like drive your sister or mother home from school or something, because you can accidentally learn a lot of things. And as somebody, coming into this industry blind, you can think you're doing something right and feel really good about it. And then 6 months down the line, you can learn that you were taught something that was wrong and you didn't know it was wrong. And I would just say, like, think about your upline and think about, what you're doing, and ultimately why you're doing it.
That's so good. Yeah. It's like your eyes, I feel like you kind of like, you got to like wipe away the fog and you got to see like more of the truth. And I appreciate you sharing that. I think that's so important to have a good leader, whoever you are, making sure that you're taking that guidance in and having good people around you. So thanks for joining here, sharing the story, and ultimately, hopefully encouraging someone to hit their goals of doing 40 calls to the month. So great job. And we're going to pause this here.